planning board meeting for the town of Poughkeepsie. Please join me for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For those of you who might have been here at the last meeting, we'll try to keep it a little shorter. First up on the agenda is Faith Assembly of God subdivision. Seeker review and final subdivision review major for a 2-lot subdivision resulting in the creation of 3 lots at 254 Spackengill Road, zoned R20. Single family, it's unlisted action. Faith Assembly of God Church is the owner. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm Paul Theorem, the project engineer representing Faith Assembly of God for this subdivision project. Here for public hearing, which I understand will be.
Is that
on?
Is your microphone
That's
on?
what I was thinking. Tilt the other one down. That's the portable one. So tilt.
There we go.
Try that.
Okay.
That's better.
I think so.
We're good to go.
So I'm Paul Theorem, project engineer for Faith Assembly of God, here representing the church for the 3-lot subdivision of their property on Spackengill Road. And we're here for public hearing tonight, which I hear is gone sideways and it will have to be rescheduled, tabled.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's an issue with the advertising of it.
Okay. It's not a problem for me. I did receive all the comments from Carol and all the different departments and yourself.
All right.
And haven't started making changes or responses to them yet, but that'll be happening in the next week. I'll be looking to resolve all those issues. None of them seem to be very difficult ones. They seem to be all minor comments, and a lot of them just, probably the most of them is you want to see the full SWIP and all that followed through. With the appendices, it was over 100 pages, so I didn't know if we wanted to make, how many copies of that when I brought in the SWIP, how many people would be reading the details of all that. I can get the full package and as many copies as you want, but it is a little over 100 pages.
Right.
And it's all a lot of soil descriptions, it's the NOI, it's all that stuff, so. But I'll gladly make them.
All right.
I don't know if there's any other items of discussion?
So Carl, I can jump in if you,
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to quickly address the public hearing. So it was properly noticed in the Poughkeepsie Journal, but unfortunately it was circulated to the incorrect property owners, as Faith Assembly does have 2 properties within the town. So when the grid numbers were pulled, they were distributed to the wrong properties. So I'm not sure if there's anyone in the audience this evening that was signed up to speak on behalf of this application, but we will not actually be opening a public hearing. It will have to be renoticed properly. And if you have any other questions about the application, please feel free to contact the planning department directly, and I'd be more than happy to talk through that with you. Otherwise, the application this evening, public hearing aside, it's just on for further seeker review and subdivision site plan review by the board and discussion. The staff is recommending deferral. I had a conversation with town engineering staff, and we just want to take another look at some of the grading, and as Paul mentioned, some more information about the SWIP before we feel comfortable finalizing the plats that are proposed. We're looking for some deed descriptions as well to be reviewed, corrected, and it's much better to go through this process and effort and review on this particular side of the application review compared to issuing a conditional approval. Then a clock starts, and then the applicant is up against that and getting all that information in correctly and filing it with the appropriate people.
Work's gotta be done anyway, so. There was one person that signed up for it tonight, but we'll have to, she said it wasn't advertised correctly, so we can't do a formal formal appeal today, so.
Possible I signed up on the wrong thing. I didn't
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, in that case, we're good for now.
Yeah, so some of the grading on the site, I have received comments, quite a few comments back from Dutchess County Health Department. And so I just resubmitted that plan yesterday to the Health Department.
Okay.
And so we did work with a lot of the grading on the property. That they had a bunch of comments on that, so.
Okay, great. And I
That will
think-
be, which wasn't part when I had to submit this either,
Oh,
but
okay.
those plans have been redone since and will be updated on the next set.
Okay, great. And I know that the engineer that sits in Town Hall, and I will defer to Don on the technicalities of that review. We thought it might even be best to just get you in, have you come in and sit with engineering staff and myself and kind of talk through any of those outstanding issues. And then this way we're moving forward in a more efficient manner and allows you to come in and keep your project moving.
Okay, I can email in a PDF of the my revised septic system plans for these two lots, and that would give you a chance to review before we sit down, and maybe that'll give us less items to go over.
Sure.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Kristen. As long as we're talking about engineering, we'll go right to Don and let him.
Besides the grading and the SWIP, those were the two major issues.
All right, thanks, Don. I assume that you've done some tests for the soils for the septic area.
Yes, we that work is all completed.
Okay, great. We'll go around the board then. Start with Rocco.
Nothing new at this time.
Noel?
You have a few things to get done, but I just wanted to note the fire department had some notes they wanted you to add to your plan. And also the zoning board, I think, was looking for some further information also for your two new lots. They need to meet requirements for the R20 district. So I think you have a few, a little bit more work there to do. And that's it.
I thought we were meeting the requirements for
Yeah,
our
we did
20
receive a note
district.
from zoning this afternoon, actually hot off the
Oh,
press. And they are actually in compliance now.
Okay, all right. So that was it.
Yeah, the fire department notes, when I put some of them on, I didn't put them all on because it seemed like this 2-lot subdivision or 3-lot subdivision, the 2 lots have driveways off an existing town road. And a lot of those fire department notes look like you're building a new subdivision with you're building new roads or something like that. But I'll just throw the whole list on there to get rid of that comment.
All right. Peter?
As we discussed last week, my concern really is that lot number 1 has very steep slopes draining into, both lot 1 and 2 are draining into a flood zone. And I just wanted to be certain that this SWIP, which you have had access to, addresses, and there's a lot of heavy vegetation in both of those lots, which I think are, help a lot with the drainage. I'm assuming a lot of that vegetation is going to be removed if you're going to build a septic system and a home.
Yeah, the driveway to home, the septic system, they will require tree clearing on both lots.
So is that addressed in the SWIP? Don?
I'm not sure what the question is. Say
The
that
question is about, with the removal of the existing vegetation and the steep slopes and the draining into a flood zone, if those issues are being adequately addressed in the SWIP.
Yes,
Okay. To your satisfaction?
yes.
Okay. Question 2 is, the maps that we get, are very small in scale. Both of the driveways appear to be going up slope. And I know that we have a requirement in the town for a grade for driveways. Don, do they exceed the grade requirements, or have you looked at that?
I'll take a look at that right this minute while you're finishing whatever else you might
Okay.
have.
I'll help you, Don. We
Okay.
haven't addressed that in these plans with the revision of the health department plans where we had to show a lot more extensive grading and proposed contours. So I believe that you'll see that when you see that plan.
Okay, we just want to be careful it doesn't exceed the town.
Yeah, we did check for that in the new grading plans. And they are the limits, but you're right, you can't tell that from what we got here.
Last thing, my question is about, is there, with lot number 2, the driveway, and being on that sharp curve, is there a sight distance issue with that driveway?
From being out there, you have a lot of sight division. You're kind of up higher than, the road comes up kind of higher at that point.
And I've been on that road many times, I know exactly what it is. My question is, I just want, when you get a chance, then if you're out there, take a look at it and see if you can determine whether or not there's a sight distance issue with the driveway on lot number 2 because of its position on that curve.
All right?
Just have a site visit and just to
Yeah.
check that box off.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming up the hill as you're getting to that curve anyway.
Yeah.
Going around.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I would just like to add one comment too. I neglected to include this in my notes, but I think it's a valid point. If we could just make sure that we identify any wetlands on the property. I know that they may not be affected by this particular project, but if you could just identify the size of that particular wetland. And then perhaps the distance to the 2 proposed lots.
Okay, I can add that.
All right, thanks. And I see you've added some screening trees for what we discussed last time from the, what the variety of trees were they? It's hard,
We were
small
just,
plan here.
when I talked to the owner, he just wanted to put some rows of pine trees, Norway spruces. And the one comment, I can't remember from where, was to extend them more along the backside of lot number 1. So we'll update that based
Yeah.
on that comment.
Yeah, that the incoming road goes past both of those lots. And, as Nicole mentioned, the fire had some issues, make sure the driveways are wide enough and support the trucks. All right, so I think it's looking good. Just finish up those details with the department and move on. Get it properly advertised for next time.
I move that the planning board defer action on the application pending a revised submittal, subject to the following. Respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning departments as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of but not limited to the following 1 through 7.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right. Good luck finishing up the details and
So do we have to do anything for the re-notification in the journal?
No, you
Okay,
do not.
okay, thank you.
so that's been corrected. Okay.
The journal notification was correct.
I do have the receipt. I don't know, I think that came from Carol. I don't,
The affidavit to Carol, that would be great.
But if.
you have it? Okay.
if
Thank you.
Right,
Okay.
if the public meeting was open, I mean, if you don't want to renotice, then you should have open tonight. But
Okay,
if the-
so we do need to
you should-
renotice then.
I would, just.
Okay.
Yeah,
We will renotice it.
I think the town can do
The
that.
town can take care of that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. We're back. We're back.
evening,
live.
everybody.
Thanks, Sandy and Carol. Bank of America, 11 Raymond Avenue. It's a public hearing and seeker review and a site plan review for the removal of an existing bank teller window to be replaced with an ATM at 11 Raymond Avenue, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center. It's a type 2 action, Balbo Management owner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Arthur Cuyan with Stonefield Engineering. The project we have before you today, as mentioned, is project at 11 Raymond Avenue, fronting New York State Route 378. Pretty simple project here. What we're proposing to do is, it's already an existing Bank of America financial center with a teller window. Moving towards the modern day banking, what they're going to be proposing, what Bank of America is going to be proposing to do is replace that teller window with a drive-up ATM. To help a little bit with the vehicular circulation, we're actually going to be pulling the curb back a little bit as well. Right now, currently, the curb is set the drive aisle is about 17 and a half feet. The proposed improvements will help pull that drive aisle back to about 21 feet. Just allowing the people that are actually going to be driving up and using the ATM a little bit more of a safer access route. Proposed improvements also include lighting. Due to the client pulling the curb back, there's an existing area light in the location of the curb. So instead of that area light, what we're going to be proposing to do is 2 canopy lights and 2 wall pack lights that you can see on Plan C4 to help make up for some of the existing lighting that's lost in the removal of the pole. There's going to be some signage included as well. The existing sign to the north of the building that is there currently still calls out a teller. So what we're going to be doing is revising that sign to be a little more specific for the drive-up ATM. And we're going to be adding 3 signs on the canopy that are going to be above the ATM. One for the passenger, one for drivers to not enter the site from the wrong side. So it's going to be a do not enter sign formatted in Bank of America's font. And the other side is just going to be 2 signs showing the clearance height and the fact that it's going to be a drive-up ATM lane. Other improvements include just new curb, new asphalt due to the curb being pulled back. All the drainage patterns are going to be maintained. There's going to be no loss of parking. Where there was originally a curb island to the west of the ATM, that's just going to be replaced with some striping. Other than that, that's nothing really else changing on the site. Again, it's just Bank of America hoping to put a drive-up ATM here and improving some of the vehicular circulations. We did receive some comments that I haven't had a chance to look at until now. Feel free to open up to you guys with any questions regarding the project.
All right, thanks. Kristen?
So thank you for the overview. Staff is recommending the opening and closing of a public hearing this evening. The action is actually a seeker type 2 action requiring no further environmental review. The signage component of the application may need to be reviewed further by the zoning department, but based on what has been submitted and reviewed, zoning did not have any questions or comments. They were satisfied with the plans. So we will follow up about that. Staff does feel that any outstanding comments could be addressed through staff working with the applicant this evening. So we are recommending adoption of a conditional site plan approval for this project.
Okay, thanks. Any engineering issues then?
We just wanted to see some existing utilities shown on the plan, that's it.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
At this time, I move that we open the public hearing for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Is there anyone in the audience wish to comment? Oh, we have one signed up, Arthur.
That's me, sorry. Oh, I didn't realize that was.
You're more than welcome to if you'd like.
Still learning.
Anyone else in the audience wish to comment on this application? I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Let's go around the board for comments, starting with Peter.
Looking at the photometrics, you have here adjacent, right adjacent to the building on the south side, 51.5 foot candles.
What plan are you looking at there? Is it C5 or is it?
C4.
C4. Yeah, so just as a little bit of clarification, all the existing lighting was actually, a project that's back in late 2017, 2018 of improvements done for this area. We're not going to be changing any of that lighting. If there is some concerns with some of how bright it is, how light it is, we'll definitely work with you guys to meet any requirements that you guys are concerned about.
Is there a state or federal statute that dictates?
There is a state statute. It's referenced in the county planning letter. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it talks about 5-foot candles at 5 feet from the ATM, and then it drops down from there to a 1-foot candle when it's 60 feet from the ATM. It nowhere goes above 5.
So we're 10 times the amount of foot candles.
Yeah, so we'll need to revisit that just to get it down to the requirements. I mean, even our town code, it's supposed to be no more than 0.2 at the property line.
Right.
For this particular zoning district. So if we can just work, maybe we can get some shields put in or a lesser wattage, just so we're meeting town code, but also adhering to the state or federal regulations that are in place.
Yeah,
for ATM.
absolutely. Absolutely. Anything that we can do to like lessen it a little bit, but still meet that New York State, because I know there's, you guys have your code of 0.2 and the New York State has their code
Yep.
of 2 at the property line, so.
I mean, we want to make sure the ATM is well lit, but
Yeah.
you don't want to blow it out of proportion. As the county refers to, somebody can drive up to the ATM and then be blinded trying to go into the night and it's
Yeah, absolutely.
out
yeah.
of there, so it has to be looked at.
Yeah, we don't want to modify it to the extent that it would in any way diminishes the safety
Right.
and the security of that building. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, perhaps, it might be LED lights perhaps that, those 5,000 temperature lights tend to look like the sun sometimes.
Yeah, and we could look at
So,
some different,
yeah,
colors and warmth
So
and some
cutoffs
shielding
are-
options.
thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Nicole?
Are you proposing any landscaping?
No.
Okay. And I just wanted to reiterate something that Water Department, you might have received that in your pack of notes. The backflow prevention is overdue, and it needs to be tested, and the certification needs to be sent to the Water Department. Other than that, that was it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Rocco?
Okay, first of all, I need to disclose, I have a daughter who works for Bank of America, and it's in Charlotte, so I don't think we've got a conflict here. But so, just so it's part of the record, but I don't have any other comments. Just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
All right, thanks, Rocco. Yeah, my concern also was the lighting, as said. Is that second lane still going to be used for anything?
Yeah, just as a bypass lane.
Just as a bypass? Okay,
right.
so be no external teller things
No.
at all then?
No.
Because the tubes come over to there.
Yeah, just the teller's going to replace with the driver bay ATM to the north side, and then the second lane just going to be used as a bypass lane.
All right. And I think, lighting wise, at least it's a business to the south of there that they won't mind the night lighting, but you want to make sure it's not glaring out onto the road as well.
Absolutely.
All right.
I move that the planning board determine that the proposal meets the criteria for a seeker type 2 action pursuant to seeker part 617.5, and no other further environmental review is required.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for Bank of America, 11 Raymond Avenue, site plan amendment, subject to the following. Respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of, but not limited to, the following 1 through 8.
Second.
And is the lighting included on your on your comment?
Well, it says respond to planning board comments, so I think it would include that, but I believe it's also in
yeah.
Kristen's memo.
Yep. Make sure that's covered. All right, it's moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Well, we also have to discuss architectural review. It's just replacing anybody have any architectural comments? Placing the ATM.
Essentially, there was an image in the packet. I mean,
Yep, I
we
see it
thought
there.
that was sufficient. As I mentioned before, any additional signage that should be submitted as a complete signage package for review to the zoning department. It sounds like what you're proposing is actually directional signage in site and interior, and I don't know that that requires variance, but
It depends how high it is and also how big it is. There's height requirements and size requirements, so.
Absolutely.
Once you submit the actual signs, the zoning administrator will review.
okay.
From an architecture standpoint, are you proposing any changes to the building color? Or is it,
Nothing.
okay. Then I move we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Good to go.
Thank you.
Next up, Stewart's Shops at 6 Manchester Circle. It's a public hearing and seeker review and site plan review for proposed canopy replacement and fuel tank replacement and associated site improvements at 6 Manchester Circle, zoned IH Heavy Industrial. It's an unlisted action, Stewart's Ice Cream Company owner. Welcome.
Good evening, Chris Potter from Stewart's. We're looking to replace our underground fuel storage tanks just as a maintenance thing. And in doing so, what we found over the years with all our stores, basically, but they have like a 20-year lifespan with the steel tank. So that's what we're proposing to do. And then with the tank replacement, we were also looking to replace the gas canopy, but it would remain in the same spot, same size, everything. We'd be reusing the existing lights. So essentially when we're done, it's gonna look exactly as it does today, but there won't be any possible structural issues that, could come up a few years down the road. So we're just being proactive and addressing, any issues that might come up. We're also looking to redo the freestanding sign because when we replace the tanks, we'd be adding diesel. So we don't, on our sign now, we don't have any signage to allow for the pricing for the diesel. So the square footage of the sign would stay the same, but we would just change the faces and stuff on the sign. There's another maintenance thing just going through. We'd be replacing sidewalks at the building, repaving the entire lot. We wouldn't be doing anything with drainage. We are going to be moving the handicap parking. I know there were some comments about that. Right now, where the handicap space is, it is closest to the door, but the slopes are exceeding allowable slopes. So really, because of the elevation of the building and the road, there's really no way to make the slopes work where it is today. The only place that they really work is around the side. So that's why we moved it to that location. And then I don't know, there were some comments just with like circulation and maneuvering plans and stuff like that. I don't know if, again, everything is staying as it is today. It's just a maintenance stuff that we're looking to do. So, our fuel tanks are staying where they are today. So fuel tanker circulates through the lot today. I don't know if.
Same traffic, same flows.
Exactly. And then I don't know, I guess there was some concern with our trash, the refuse stuff overflowing. I guess that's first time we've heard of it. We can certainly look at, and talk to our vendor about that, maybe a larger container or more frequent pickups. But there are some rollaway bins there, and that's for recycling, which we're required to do. So that's why those are there.
Yeah, just gotta make sure they don't conflict with the handicap parking there in the new.
Right.
Are you doing anything to the building itself, or this is all just exterior?
It's just all exterior. Yeah.
All right. Defer to Kristen now for.
Thank you, Chris, for jumping in the hot seat for Chuck this evening. So the application is on for public hearing. We thought it would be great to get that on now and collect any possible comments from adjoining property owners, as you know, this is right on the corner and at the end of Manchester Road, though, on Route 55. We just wanted to collect any feedback sooner than later. I did have a couple of comments regarding the short form EAF, just really minor, just to correct the answers that were provided. I know reading those questions, sometimes you think they're asking one thing and it's actually another.
Yep.
So confirming that and correcting that and resubmitting to us for review. Site plan review, I do have a bunch of comments here. Most of it actually has to do with our site plan review checklist items that need to be completed as part of the application that was submitted. So I know that you mentioned maneuverability. That is a request that oftentimes I do like to see as staff, not just myself, other staff members, but also the fire department for emergency access purposes, which is why I know that some of their comments actually asked about possibly placing a clearance height on the canopy, which is a conversation I think we can follow up on offline. But that's where that's coming from. So yeah, there are a number of comments here. I mean, I think they're fairly straightforward, willing to work with the applicant to get through those. But due to the nature of the amount of comments, we are recommending the opening and adjourning the public hearing this evening and deferring action on the site plan until they revise the package and resubmit.
Finish it up. All right. Thanks, Kristen. We jump to engineering.
Well, I don't know if these are as much engineering concerns as just concerns about what's going on at the site there now. There's parking that parallels Route 55 right now. We're suggesting that they consider making that, striping that, so that at least if people are going to park there, they'll park in between the lines. And secondly, there's quite a bit of parking that occurs out along whatever the name of the street there is, Manchester
Circle.
on both sides. It's making quite a mess. So we just suggested maybe they consider paving the one side. I don't know that there's anything they can really do on the other side, but
At least I know, in the canopy area there's it's all dirt at where the storm drain is, and that I can imagine silt's washing down in the storm drain, so that's not a good situation. So
Yeah, I think when we're doing all our paving in it, that's something
Probably-
that could be easily done.
it's all rutted there from people parking there, so that's probably a good thing to pave.
Yeah, I was actually there yesterday, and a delivery vehicle didn't want to pull into the site, parked on Manchester Circle, but they actually pulled off into your landscaped area along your storefront. So now if you see it there, it's actually kind of washed out and dirt, and
Yep.
it's not great. And I know in another instance that happened, I think it was 1200 Dutchess Turnpike across the street, that was happening with some of the larger tractor trailers, and they were eating up some of the landscaping or grass across from your property. And I know we had worked with Chuck, and you guys were able to clean that up and fix it. So just something to keep in mind.
All right, at this point, I want to move to open the public hearing for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Is there anyone in the audience wish to comment on this project tonight? Seeing none, I move we adjourn the public hearing to September 19th, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Let's go around the board. Start with Nicole.
Yeah, so a couple of my questions were kind of already answered, but I had a question for you. You have outside eating there? People are allowed to eat on the outside,
Yeah, we have a couple
right?
picnic tables at the front door.
Yeah, there was a comment from the fire department. They were wondering if you could put some bollards up just for, protection.
Yep.
For anyone that would be out there, and that was pretty much it. Some of my other questions were already answered.
And it looked like you're redoing that patio anyway, right outside the front door, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's currently some there. I don't know why they didn't make it on this plan, but we would be putting them in.
Okay.
It's just an oversight on our part.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's actually a piece starting to come out of one of them, so I think that they're doing their job.
Rocco?
Just a clarification, will this work be done while you're still open?
Yes, it would be.
Okay.
Yep.
And I assume we're going to get a plan on how you're going to replace the tanks while you're still open?
Yeah, we'll provide a phasing plan and address the comments. Yep.
All right.
So the new tank's same spot then?
Yep. They'll remove the old tanks, and then in that same hole, they'll have to make them slightly larger because the new tanks are a little bit larger, and then they'll put those in and backfill.
Okay, so it's just a temporary closure for when the tanks are being actually moved.
Well, the way it would be like that right side of the lot would kind of be shut down when they're doing the tanks. So you kind of only have parking on the left side, and then get that area up and going. So
So
it's definitely going to impact the store.
Store's still open for business.
Yeah, we're going to have limited parking.
All right. Let's see, Peter?
Do you feel qualified to answer a question about the installation process? Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
And the general notes, the backfill, it suggests a 3/8 pea stone use for the backfill or an approved equal. Will you be using the pea stone for?
If it's available locally, close by, yes.
What would you use as, if it weren't, what would be an approved equal backfill?
There's a 1A crushed stone that's allowed also.
Does the DEC, do they monitor the installation?
They do, yeah.
So they come at different stages?
Yep, and we have geologists on site, throughout the process. In the event we did come across any type of contamination, we'd have to remove that and, go through the process.
Do you know if there are any regulations with regard to impact? Say, for instance, if there were a disturbance, say if there were some hammering, if someone were doing some construction nearby, are they really designed to absorb that kind of impact?
The fuel tanks themselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the purpose of the pea stone?
Yeah, it's one of them to protect the round stone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. All right, my comments were similar. I think they most have been covered. Trash enclosure, you talked about the handicap location. Trash enclosure is kind of a fence right now, I guess. Is that what's remaining on the plan that you?
We didn't have any provisions in our improvements to change anything, but I was looking through the sections of the code that was referenced, and it mentions masonry enclosures. So
Right, that's typically what we're asking for now to be, so it's not, so it looks more,
sure.
so we can work with the department on that.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion about that, especially if you're looking to close down part of the site. I mean, I think it's a conversation we can have offline and we'll
Okay.
discuss, and then they can resubmit for you to review.
I can't remember, I don't know what the condition of the current enclosure is there, but it sounds like there's some issues with the trash.
Yeah, interestingly enough, there was a bin inside of the gated area, and then there was also one floating in the parking lot yesterday. So I don't know if it was just pickup or staff in the store was. Yeah.
I stopped there before I came over here, and there was one. It was on the side of the building that I noticed.
All right, just need to maintain that. All right, I think we're good to go tonight.
I move that the planning board defer action on the site plan application pending a revised submittal subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness inclusive of, but not limited to, the following 1 through 8.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck working out the rest of the details, and we'll see you back here in September, right? At this time, I move that we allow public comment on any other agenda items, and we'll ask to limit your comments, please, to 3 minutes, and the planning board will consider any comments made during the portion of the meeting, but will not respond to them directly during the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, is there anyone in the audience wish to comment on any other items on tonight's agenda? I believe there was. Yep, I believe there's a Luke.
Not faster. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's right, yeah.
Hello, my name is Luke Hunsberger. I'm a professor of computer science at Vassar College, and thank you for allowing me to speak. First, why does Vassar want to build a hotel? In short, because a wealthy Vassar trustee donated $30 million to be used exclusively for building a hotel. It is a $30 million vanity project. Second, where did the idea of the Institute come from? Recognizing that building a hotel is nowhere near the top of Vassar's needs, college president Elizabeth Bradley invented the idea of attaching an institute to the hotel to make the proposal more palatable to Vassar faculty. What are some of the negative impacts of the proposal? First, it would demolish the historic Williams faculty housing complex to make room for a giant parking lot. The Williams complex should be placed on Poughkeepsie's Register of Historic Buildings. Instead, their proposal to tear down Williams would force the dislocation of 21 households. Second, Vassar's proposal would obliterate half of the large green park along Raymond Avenue, which is the only place where the Vassar and larger Poughkeepsie communities regularly come together, not just for the weekly farmers markets, but also for a variety of community events throughout the year. Third, the 50-room hotel, institute, and restaurant would dramatically increase traffic along both College and Raymond Avenues, disrupting the quiet residential neighborhood that is adjacent to the College Avenue Historic District. Fourth, it would negatively impact the environment. Maintaining existing buildings is one of the most effective ways of preserving the environment. Tearing down buildings is one of the worst. Fortunately, an alternate site along College View Avenue has all of the benefits of the proposed site, but none of the negatives, and I have an attachment for you. It would not require demolishing any existing buildings. It would help to revitalize the distressed economic corridor along College View Avenue, and it has ample space for parking. Now, Vassar's recent presentation to the town board included many false and misleading statements. For example, they said that Vassar currently has adequate faculty housing. That is false. Vassar currently has a crisis in faculty housing. Incoming faculty are frequently unable to find housing. Vassar has point blank refused to commit any money to create new faculty housing to replace Williams. Instead, they have only a vague proposal to ask local developers to build new housing on Vassar land for free, but have not worked out how to ensure that it would be affordable, who would maintain it, and so on. Vassar also claimed that the majority of the lawn below Alumni House is going to remain open. That is false. Approximately half of the green space would be consumed, completely altering its character and making it much less likely that community events would be approved in the future. In conclusion, I urge the planning board to reject Vassar's proposal, specifically reject their request to allow conference center and hotel use to be added as a permitted use to the institutional zone. Vassar should be encouraged to preserve the few connections it has with the Poughkeepsie community instead of demolishing faculty housing and wrecking the beautiful green park. Now, just as a side note, practically no one who attends the farmers market, I'd stop by there on the way over, know about this proposal. Summertime is difficult with so many professors and students away, making their chance to make comments to you. And just as a side note, I was in Minnesota on personal emergency, so I couldn't attend the town board meeting in June. But so I have packages for you with more information. I didn't know how many to make, but since there's only 3 minutes, I don't know who are
The members would be
Thank you.
Nicole, Carl, and Peter.
I apologize for not knowing your process.
That's fine.
I'll take it.
Thanks for your comments.
Guilty. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wish to comment on any other items in tonight's agenda? Come on down.
Hello, I'm Suzanne, and I actually was at the farmer's market and received this handy-dandy handout about the proposed project. I happen to have lived in Williams when I worked at Vassar College 30 years ago, and when I walk or drive by, it still resonates with me as a unique and valuable place. And seeing the plans here almost guarantee that the quality of the place will be destroyed. I also used to work at Scenic Hudson, so it's not riverfront property, but there's a view shed. And while it might be necessary to provide visitors to Vassar College with a place to stay, I know that there are existing places available. And also, as a naturalist, just being in that area, I encourage each one of you, and I'm guessing that you're local, hoping that you are. This is my first time here.
It's required.
Take a walk. What? Take a walk if you haven't already, and just look at the trees. And imagine the place without them. There's considerable development, gentrification happening in the city of Poughkeepsie, supporting the arts, and so on. And I've seen buildings go up, multi-use properties, various galleries and housing and all of that. And so I think that if there's an alternative, that it might be foolhardy and short-sighted to rush into making a decision about this. It doesn't seem, as a former IT person also at Vassar, this doesn't seem logical. And it doesn't seem beneficial in the long run for the people in the community, for the people who represent Vassar College and want to be proud of it, and even for the visitors who come and want to experience a special place here. So I encourage everyone to try and just take a breath and really consider this from multiple perspectives, not just an economic development one or a Vassar College needs one. And and those trees are beautiful and old. And I also would like to ask if there can be additional outreach into the community, because there's no reason why I shouldn't have known about this. And it is summertime, the students aren't around either. And so maybe there can be additional outreach to the community so there's a broader awareness about what's going on. And thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments. Is there anyone else wish to comment? Seeing none, I move that we resume the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Vassar Inn and Institute. For declaration of lead agency intent and revised actions, recommendations to the town board on a zoning text amendment and site plan review, proposed construction of a 3-story hotel at 50 rooms and attached 2-story conference center of 195 seats, and restaurant and outdoor dining of 120 seats, parking and pedestrian improvements, and that includes demolition of the existing Williams House and single-family residence. The road access from College Avenue on the same site and exiting in the existing alumni house. It's type 1 action, Vassar College owner.
Just getting the plug for the
Yep.
projector.
Get that set up.
That's sort of one.
I was at the farmer's market myself before the meeting. Luckily, the rain held off. It was
It's always a good thing when the rain holds
quite a
off.
few vendors there still. That's good.
Okay. So hi, I'm Marianne Begemon. I'm the Dean of Strategic Planning and Academic Resources at Vassar College. And I apologize for not being at the prior meeting when the Vassar's in an Institute project was discussed. But I want to thank you for your time this evening and the opportunity to respond to comments that have been made previously. All I'm going to do is give you a brief overview of what we wanted to cover this evening. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes, and certainly we'll take all the questions and comments that we have as we go through that. So we're going to start with Brian Swartout, who you've met before. He's going to give a brief overview of where we are with the project, addressing some of the comments and concerns that have been made previously. That'll be very brief. We'll follow with Ken Casamento, who has some details on a site plan, sewer line placement across College Avenue. So that will follow. And we'd like to spend the bulk of the time talking about the architecture of the project and the exterior look and feel of the project. And for that, we have Matt Kelly here from Fred Fisher Partners, our architectural firm. So that's kind of the scope of what we're going to be discussing. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity, and we'll take questions, obviously, and comments as we go. So, turning it over to Brian.
It's saying,
It's trying to duplicate on there.
but it doesn't look like it's on.
Is there anything we have to hit here?
Is that HDMI or?
There it is.
Actually, it's on here.
It's searching. Nope. Fill.
Sometimes it does take a second. Might have to switch to the computer.
Using HDMI cable or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's been some issues because
It's easier.
And try VGA.
try the VGA, yeah, if you can.
Unplug the other one.
There you go.
Okay.
There, that worked.
There you go. Yeah, I think the HDMI that was built into the system is a little bit old, back level compared
Gotcha.
to some of the newer laptops that come along.
Great, thank you. So I'm Brian Swartout, I work at Vassar College, and I'm just going to give a brief introduction to the project, as Marianne mentioned. Just a reminder, at the last meeting, we really focused just on the site plan. We hadn't started working on the architecture yet, so as Marianne mentioned, we're going to spend a lot of time on that. Also, reminder, at the first meeting, we did get some feedback that the plan did not fit within the zoning for institutional zone, so we did start the process with the town board of getting the hotel conference center as a permitted use within the institutional zone. So that process is going. Thank you for that feedback. Just a couple comments about the architecture, and again, Matt will get into the specifics. We spent a lot of time working on that. It is a modern building, which is consistent with Vassar's history of building contemporary buildings. There are elements of the architecture that link with Vassar's history and the area that surrounds this new building, and Matt will get into that in a little bit more detail. Couple of things I wanted to mention, though, before we get into the details. The preservation of the green space. It was important for us to preserve it, as we talked about the last time. And about 70% of the green space north of the path that goes up to Alumni House is being preserved. And if you look at kind of the picture that's in front of you, you can see how there's quite a bit of green space and how it wraps around the building. We tucked the building back intentionally to try and preserve as much of the green space as possible. More than is necessary to maintain the farmers market and all the other events that currently occur there, and others which may occur there in the future. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have considered a number of locations. Some were pretty quickly dismissed as infeasible. Other we spent a little bit more time on. One was the farm, where we have quite a bit of space, but that proved a little too far away from campus in the Arlington Business Improvement District. We also looked at the area across from the proposed project where the tennis courts are. And at quick glance, that does seem like a logical place. But as you start looking at it in more detail and realize that it would require curb cuts on College View, which would take away some parking in Arlington, removal of tennis courts, which, like the lawn, people use, including people in the community. And it would put adults who may or may not be connected with Vassar in close proximity to, or in overnight accommodations in close proximity to two of our student dorms. We didn't think that was appropriate and presented an unnecessary risk, even if it was a low risk. So after considering those things, it wasn't quite as strong of a site. And then when we put all of our options together and did a thorough review, we really feel that the site that we are proposing to build on is the one that fits best within our goals, which are being adjacent to campus but not on campus, to try and create a conduit between campus and the community, and also create a retreat-like setting. To be near the Arlington Business Improvement District to participate in the development of that area. To be near Alumni House for the potential for synergies there, if it will work out. And in an area with sufficient land for the parking and the program while still preserving as much of the green space as we can. So having selected this location and making the decision to take down Williams, we've been working with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, on the project. And through discussions with SHPO, they have agreed that this is a good location for this project. They've also agreed that Williams is not a good candidate for adaptive reuse. And so kind of getting them to the point where recognizing that it does make sense to take Williams down, we're working with them to preserve Williams in other ways, while preserving the history without preserving the building. We're nearly complete with them on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken, who's going to get into the kind of minor modifications on the site plan.
Skip one more for me. All right. So since the last time we were in front of you, we haven't had major site plan changes. We've done some minor changes since the last submission. One of the largest concerns we had before was the fire department with regard to access inside and circulation around that. We met with George, and George worked with us on that circulation and both interior modifications for standpipes and stuff like that. We were able to shift the tree that's in that courtyard slightly north. That gave him access that he thought was there, as you can see in his most recent comments with no concern, and I know he's here, so if he has any more, he can speak up for us. Would be great either way. But we did accommodate that. We also adjusted a little bit in the parking lot to allow for an SU-30 vehicle, which basically the smaller size fire vehicle, to be able to maneuver in and out through there if there was a turning requirement through there. One of the things we did do that we took into account with the board was there was questions about the pedestrian access between Raymond and the building itself with the paths. There was a numerous number of paths. We also had that entry, because of grading between the two is slightly elevated. It was coming up with a ramp and some stairs at that entry. Now we've kind of smoothed that area out a little more, created more of the lawn in the front, and it kind of flows right up. Also removed one of the paths that was a question kind of in the middle, still keeping a path to the north, which would be the future access to the farmers market as we discussed through the loading area. Also, the loading access from Raymond Avenue into the building itself in the back for just the occasional large vehicles that would happen as we discussed last time. There would be there is one path there that connects from that same spot there where Raymond is and comes right down to the dining area and the restaurant area, which would also bring you into the Institute and hotel, an inn, if you were to come from that direction as well. One of the biggest changes that we had, if you go up one, please, is working with the sewer department. There was a request to reroute the sewer, as you can see here, to the main trunk line that is owned by the town down below at the bottom of the page. There was a dual purpose in that it was helping alleviate some of their existing flows throughout campus and on the other line, but it also, Vassar has agreed to give the town a easement over that line and down to the main there that I know Franco's been having difficulty being able to get in there to maintain those lines because there is no permanent access for the town. So it was a dual benefit that Vassar felt it would both help them and help the town, providing future access in that point for them for maintenance of the sewer lines. So really, that's all the site changes that we've done. Quite minor, actually, other than the sewer component there. I'll turn it over to Matt for some discussion on architecture.
Thanks, Ken. So Matt Kelly from Frederick Fisher and Partners. I'm a partner there. We've also been working hard on finalizing the design. It was we showed you kind of a white line renderings last time. It was a little hard to get a sense of the finished design. So we'll be talking a little bit more about the material strategies and the as we kind of get to more specifics today. And so I'll just run through kind of some overall design ideas just to kind of introduce you to our thought process as well. I mean, Brian hit a lot of this. You guys hear? Is this close enough? The setting. I mean, we worked long and hard with Vassar to help them select this site and make sure it was really working well for the program. Again, we agree the diagram of the kind of light connection to town for the restaurant and the connection to community, but also a retreat from campus was very important. And also the synergy with Alumni House, which we would not be getting on other sites. And then working with our landscape designer as well, really just emphasizing how much of this lawn we could save, how that alley of trees is really preserved, and the lawn is allowed to flow around the building, which you can really see in the first rendering that we showed. That was a very high priority. And we've been looking at the campus the entire design process and being influenced by both the oldest historic main building, but also kind of the more contemporary structures and modern. As Brian mentioned, this is still a modern building that we've designed, and it's in the ethos of the Institute and the hotel, and what Vassar wants to build is a progressive contemporary structure. So just going through, these are actually kind of as you go down Raymond Avenue even, you get from the historic entryway and library to the more quirky modernist structure and then the contemporary science building. Just wanted to point that out. So the main diagram of the project, it was actually an initial reaction to this site was that the scale is pretty low. The Alumni is 3 stories. The Williams House is 3 stories. There's a residential neighborhood across the street. So we initially decided to break up the program and to give both pieces an identity. And so this just talks about the inn being a place of rest and retreat, and the Institute and restaurant really being that independent, more cutting-edge volume that speaks to kind of what they're going to do in the Institute. And the restaurant is also below that, which is public-facing, so faces the community. And we think of that piece as kind of the lantern of knowledge has been the metaphor. And then these pieces are connected with a glass lobby that we think of as kind of a public living room, and trying to make that as welcoming as possible, both to visitors arriving by car and by foot. A little slow to turn. So this is kind of that direct diagram rendered, so you can get the idea. So we're standing on Raymond Avenue, looking back to the glass lobby, with the inn on the left and the Institute on the right. So we've gone with we really wanted to use a grounded historic reference in the material. So we are using a dark brick on the inn and the base of the restaurant with dark mullions currently. And then the Institute is a simple glass volume with both vision and non-vision glass. You'll be able to see that a little more in the other renderings. But you can also see how much lawn, this is a pretty wide angle view, but there is quite a bit of lawn that flows around and keeps the park feeling like a public realm, even right in front of the building. There's It slopes up a bit here, so there'll be some taller grasses to allow for that universal access to happen along this path, so there's no stairs once you get up to the patio. And I would say, main building on campus really influenced our selection of the brick. It's tending toward a darker color, and we feel like the darker color actually recedes in nature, which you can see in some of the renderings as well. Just brought these for reference in case we need to talk about the specific heights. The inn, clearly it's a 3-story structure. It has a bit of a mechanical space on top, and it's at 55 feet. And then the Institute, 2 stories, is at about 30 feet to the top of the parapet, and then with some mechanical screening set far enough back that you don't see it from all angles. And then the local context itself. I mean, Alumni House, the whole point of having synergy here really influenced the massing. So the way we've arranged the massing, the original landscape design was based on picturesque axes, so that view from campus right up the hill, but also the rock outcropping on just to the kind of northeast of Alumni House was planted around in a way to create kind of framed views, and so we've taken that into account in the siting of the project. This is the backside of Williams House, and we actually think of the inn as trying to replicate that massing as closely as possible. It has the dormers out of the roof there, so we're trying to break up the massing in the same way with our more contemporary interpretation of Williams. Ours is, the building is shorter, just to give you a sense, than the 3 buildings combined, but it's bigger than the one central building. I think Williams is about a little over 45 feet. Ours is probably about 10 feet taller. It's just from an estimate. So this is that view coming up the main axis. It's a little blocked by this existing tree, so we've faded that out a bit, but as you walk up this path, you get Alumni House framed in the background. And just we're trying to emphasize the kind of sympathy of form and scale. So a pitched roof, framing Alumni House with the Institute. The dark brick we looked at a lot of different colors of brick actually, and also looked at the sustainability of that material. And the dark we felt was allowing us to frame that view instead of being the same color. We looked at kind of buff tones, more like Alumni House, and it kind of competes with the project. So that's why another reason we went with the darker brick. And then we wanted to talk about College Ave. So the inn runs parallel to College Ave in the residential neighborhood. It's set 50 feet back, and we don't have as good of a rendering because the density of the trees, but you can get a sense of the homes over here. And the inn is set back 50 feet and is screened with some landscape, but the low gable side of the roof really tries to mediate the scale as most it can on that elevation. So just wanted to give you a sense of how it felt on that avenue. And the other thing that separating the programs really did was allow us to tuck all the vehicular circulation behind and make up a more human scale plaza. It also, we're really happy we have no vehicles out in front of the park. So that is, the green can come right up to the building and really feel like the building is a pavilion in the park. And so just this gives you a sense. The base of the Institute here is the same brick as the inn. You have the glass reflecting the sky above, and then this is a separate drop-off canopy to cover from rain. This central path is what you take to go back up to Alumni Hill. So if you have any questions there.
Can I just quickly ask,
Yes.
what's the roofing material of the inn?
It's a dark standing seam metal, so it's a painted standing seam metal. The chimney form will be the same masonry. The dormers are capped in a flat seam metal. There's brick. It's a little dark on this screen. I'm not sure how well you guys can see it. But, again, this is the west elevation, the side we were just looking at. I will mention we also worked on the short end of the gable that's fronting Raymond to give it more interest. That was one of the comments. We've added a lot more windows to that elevation. Talking about just coming from the Raymond Avenue side, we were influenced, the two-story structure that became the Institute and the restaurant was really influenced by the lower context of Arlington. Again, the rendering we started with, kind of showing the pavilion in the park. It's rotated on a 45-degree angle, so only the very corner comes within roughly 50 feet of the property line. So very far, the mass of the building is very far from the root balls of all those trees.
One of the things that this allowed us to do is that whole row of Raymond, as Matt pointed out before, of trees will be preserved throughout the project. There's also 2 trees that are just set back down by the existing path that we've worked around to also preserve.
And then as you approach the restaurant, so this is your approach from town as you get closer. So you'll see the main dining hall and the restaurant here with some outdoor dining, just seasonally, most likely. And the Institute above will be a mix of, it's an all glass surface, but it's both vision and non-vision. So you'll see into some of the rooms and parts of these panels and others not. And then at night, we're basically I was going to try to point out what's solid and what's not, but this image is kind of at dusk reflecting the sky, so we're not lighting the exterior of the glass, we're just getting glow from the interior at night, so that glow from the restaurant, we're hoping, brings people from town over here, so it should be visible. And then there's some lighting spilling out from the main lobby beyond. I have the plans for reference if we need those as well. Didn't need to talk to too many specific points here. One of the reasons we went with a very square, simple shape for the Institute is flexibility and long-term sustainability. It's just a easily reconfigurable form for the needs of a conference center, so that was one of the influences there. Yeah, that's all I have.
One of the comments from staff that we received, which was regard to, if you go back to just the one from Raymond or the side view, is the second floor open. Yeah, right. You went past it. There you go. This second floor space that's basically open on top. So if you're in the inn, you can walk across into the Institute from up above. There above the entry and the connector. It was not meant to be additional space for a venue or anything like that. It'd be used in synergy with a venue. If you're meeting beforehand to go into your conference area, that type thing.
Don't you think that needs a roof over the passageway?
You can passage above or below.
No, but I'm saying above, if it's raining out or something like that and someone's coming from the hotel into the Institute, don't you think there needs to be some type of roof above them?
Well, the idea would be they'd come down below and use the connected path below.
Okay.
In the first floor to come through.
It's open. All right. Anything further?
I think we've kind of covered it.
Thanks for the overview.
Yep.
Let me go to Eric first.
This application, there's a new application in connection with this project to the town board for a zoning text amendment to explicitly provide for this use within the institutional district. The town board has referred that as required to the planning board for recommendation, and due to the change in the overall action, the seeker environmental regulations require the board to recirculate the action as revised to the involved and interested agencies. That's the resolution in your packets for action tonight. And after that, there's a required 30-day period for those agencies to respond before any board can take action on either of the applications.
Right.
So that's the action for the board tonight. In addition to that, there's a number of comments on aspects of the plans and the proposal. Thank you for some of the clarifications tonight. One of the issues, I believe, is that traffic consultant and staff have both made comments about seeking additional information about the parking analysis. The board had expressed concern about that, and it's been a historic concern in the Arlington area about the availability of parking, since the proposal includes to meet some of the parking demand on the site, and the balance of the parking from on-street parking in the vicinity and possibly on campus. Once our traffic consultant and the applicant have both expressed interest in getting together to work out the details of that analysis, and we expect that to occur before they return. So hopefully additional information will be forthcoming to work through that. The other comments mostly have to do with various aspects of the plan. You addressed some of them tonight, and we're going to be meeting with the applicant again before the next submittal. So with that, I'll turn it over for any questions or discussion of the board.
All right, thanks, Eric. Go to Don first for discuss the sewer a little bit, but.
Yeah, there's probably two major issues that we're working on at the moment. That's making sure that the sewer connection is made and shown correctly, and the second thing is SWIP, as always.
And if I could, Don, we had Tim out on site just this week doing the soils, witnessing the soils test, so we'll be completing the stormwater design and submit it as part of the next submission.
Okay.
All right. Let's go around the board. Start with Rocco this time.
Okay, two issues we talked about. One, Eric, about the parking. That's a serious concern, because even as I drove in that side of Raymond going south, I guess, was pretty filled up with the people attending the going to the farmers market, etc. And plus on College Avenue there, I don't know what you can do there, and I know your plan is going to take away some spots on Raymond because of the load-in zone, the proposed load-in zone, which will cramp that even further. Type of thing. So that's one issue. The other one is with the architecture. To me, the inside kind of improved a little bit from the last time. But the institute itself seems to be in stark contrast to not only what you're seeing that's going to be in front of the alumni house, and it's going to be in stark contrast to that. And plus, it doesn't seem to fit into the overall of the Arlington area. And given the sense of how the rest of the Vassar campus that I've walked through anyway seems to be fairly well integrated, I guess might be, and it's got a lot of various different architecture styles there. This is really in sharp contrast, and it seems to stand out like, I don't want to be derogatory, but not almost like a sore thumb type of thing. And that's not a commentary on your design, it's just, it doesn't seem to fit in the area, in my view.
Thanks, Rocco. Nicole?
Just a couple of things. The tree clearing restriction needs to be added to the plans between the dates of October 1st and March 31st.
Yep.
So you're going to be removing 4 buildings, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in relation to the professors that currently live in William House, do they have housing, or are they going to be provided with housing? What's going on there?
All the continuing faculty currently in Williams House, we will fit within our existing stock.
And how many people live there currently?
There's 20 units in there. Most are short-term faculty or have been there for a short period of time. So definitely the longer-term faculty will be able to find a home in our other faculty housing.
So 20 people or more?
It's 20 units.
Yeah, but
currently
how
today.
many people, do you know?
How many people? What's your question?
How many people live there currently?
20.
20.
There are 20 occupants, yes. 21, sorry, 21.
21, okay.
20 units, and there are, I mean, obviously some of those might be more than one person living in a unit, but 20 units.
Okay.
21, sorry.
Now, I believe you probably received this, but the New York State Historic Preservation wanted some type of structure documentation and some possible reuse of building elements. Are you going to
Yeah, so
do that?
we've been working with SHPO and we're responding to their comments. Most of everything they've talked about doing, we're working back with them to do. As Brian alluded to before, Vassar is interested in preserving, going a little bit above and beyond what the normal structural documentation is that they've asked for. They've committed to doing a little bit more to further preserve the Williams House in a format, but not the building itself.
How does the Williams House inside? Because I've heard certain things that the structure inside Williams House isn't that great currently. Is that correct?
Correct. So as part of the documentation that we submitted to SHPO to get to the point where we got those concerns, Vassar had done historically a study on rehabbing it. And there was costs associated with those rehabs. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I believe we can include the documentation in the next submission, so you see that as well, that what went to SHPO. But it's available on the site through it. But basically, it was determined that the cost to renovate would be far more than it is to get it to code, than it's worth to preserve that building.
Okay. Also, the Department of Transportation wanted to do some type of safety study. Did you guys receive that information?
Yes, we did. Yeah, and the
Okay.
traffic consultant's working on it.
Okay. And then I just want to reiterate also, what Rocco said over here. We're going to have to look at these parking spots, because especially if that outside market is still going to be going on. I mean, there's no parking spot sometimes to even be had when that's going on, or if there's some type of Vassar thing going on. Sometimes the parking on Raymond Avenue and some of those side streets are already compiled with cars. So to ask us to allow you to have 60, I think it's like 57 on-street parking lots for this particular proposal, we're just going to have to see about that.
If I may too, that's also when we did the numbers and we talked about it, when you look at those in the documents, it's a worst case scenario. That's assuming that everyone in the restaurant, everyone in the institute, and everyone in the inn, no one is doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying too, because you think there's going to be a lot of people walking over
Correct.
from Vassar, but that might not be the case. You might
I
have
understand.
outside people driving to that restaurant,
Correct.
outside people driving to that hotel, out of state, things of that sort. So, yeah, we'll have to look at that a little bit more clearly.
Like Eric said, we'll have our traffic consultant and work through it.
I
and
mean, it'd be good if you can quantify the number of people walking versus.
Yeah, it's a difficult task
I'm sure it is, but.
But we'll look at that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, Peter.
First, last week, or our last meeting, we were looking at an application on the other end of Raymond Avenue, and there were representatives from the fire department who expressed concern about water pressure on Raymond Avenue. And I just want to make sure that we follow up and touch base with the fire department to see if that same problem exists for this end of Raymond Avenue. Now, I want to follow up on the question Nicole had. You were commenting about relocating people at the Williams Building, and you used the word continuing faculty, which immediately jumped off the page to me. Now, Nicole asked you, of the 21 units, how many are continuing faculty and how many are what you would consider like short-term faculty? How does that break down?
I don't remember the number offhand. I believe it's, at least half are not continuing.
Okay, so
But
let's say 10 units are continuing and the balance are short-term.
I think they said 20. I think they said 21 units.
21, yeah, sorry, I
units.
corrected myself.
Right, so that's 11 and 10. So for continuing faculty, you need to provide 10 units of housing. Is that your intention?
Yeah, every year we have turnover in our faculty housing, so
Okay.
we can accommodate that.
Let's see. Are you aware that the businesses in the Arlington area petitioned the town board to change the parking regulations on Raymond Avenue because they were desperate for parking? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware that Arlington is doing a parking study.
But my question is, are you aware that the business owners, existing business owners in Arlington requested that the town board change the parking regulations on Raymond Avenue because there is a severe parking deficit in that area?
I'm not aware of that.
Well, now you are.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And Vassar's participating with the Arlington Business Improvement
Well,
District, including those businesses
of
on the
course.
area, to do a study of the parking to see.
Many of those people are your own tenants. Now, when part of the seeker procedure will be to make a determination of the economic impact of this. And certainly, we're going to look at how the parking is going to impact those businesses, many of whom are your tenants in the Arlington area. In the past 5 to 6 months, we've approved 2 projects, over 1,000 units of housing and about 500,000 square feet of commercial space. And we went to a lot of trouble to come up with a plan with them in terms of design so that they would be very people-friendly, that they would be inviting. A couple of days ago, the planning board made a field trip to one of those projects called Eastdale. It's being built by Joe Kirchhoff, who's done work for you, and he's done great work. And he's taken huge buildings and through creative design, use of dormers and gables, arches, Palladian windows, columns, he's made them extremely people-friendly. Honestly, when the McDonald Heights Center was created, I thought no one would ever be able to build it because he built a small town with shops, commercial space, apartments, and he's doing a terrific job. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. We have another project that we just approved, Hudson Heritage across from Marist College. When they came in originally with their design, we told them that's not going to work. And I told them the same thing that I told you the last time you were here. You're coming to this board time after time is very costly, and I don't want to spend your money. But somehow I think it would be to your advantage, both in terms of time and cost and expense, if you were to come in and meet with our planning department and look at some of the design work that has been presented to us that we found acceptable, so you don't have to keep coming back here time and time again and have our tell you, that's not what we want. Maybe it would be helpful to you to see the kinds of things that we do find that are acceptable. But that's your call. That's up to you. I can't force you to do that, but I would highly recommend that you consider doing that. Now, I'm kind of curious why. Another thing is the zoning text amendment, just so you know, affects other properties. If the town board elects to go ahead and provide you with the zoning text amendment, we're going to have to look at every other property in the town that zoning text amendment will affect and the impact that it'll have on those neighborhoods, some of which are located in residential areas. I don't understand really why you just didn't apply for Arlington Town Center rezoning, which already provides for a hotel conference. Maybe at some point in the future you consider doing that, because I think really it's a much clearer path, and it probably would save you a lot of time, trouble, and money. Let's see if I have anything else here. Oh, by the way, if you get the zoning text amendment from the town, are you going to enter into a pilot agreement with the town for the payment of the land and school taxes and fire?
I mentioned before that we want this building to be additive to the tax rolls for the town, but exactly what we're going to do, I couldn't say at this point in time.
Have you had any discussions with the town about a pilot agreement?
Not yet. Not at this time, no.
Because again, that's going to have a tremendous impact on our thinking in terms of economic impact on the town. So if you're going to do this, I would say, I can't think of any project that we have approved for that is in, as a matter of fact, in some districts. For instance, we recently approved what we call the Planned Residential Overlay District. It was pretty much agreed from day one that there would be a pilot agreement for that, and if it were transferred to a not-for-profit, that pilot agreement would go with the deed. So I think that's something you probably should at least have some initial conversations with somebody from the town board. Because the sales tax on the rooms, Dutchess County, we get, the sales tax on hotel rooms, I think is around 8.25%, give or take. The state gets 5%, 3% or 3.5% goes to the county. We get about 8 cents on the dollar from the county. So in terms of sales tax on the motel, those are peanuts. They're not going to amount to really a hill of beans for us. But the pilot agreement is something we're going to look very, very closely at.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, a lot of my concerns were touched on already. I did notice the fire department was asking about he was doing some training in the buildings before demolition. I'm concerned, would you say the buildings are not on the historic register? Is that what you're?
They are not, correct.
Okay. And they seem old enough, but it sounds like they have some issues with them as well. Parking is still one of my biggest things as well. I'm glad we've touched on it here. The one concern I had is the parking lot getting filled up by people just going to the restaurant, and somebody's trying to get a room at the inn, and they got to park way down the street and drag their suitcases or however that works out. But try to figure that out. I don't know if some spaces can be marked as dedicated for the inn, but you don't want to overdo that and then not have.
Yeah, and like we said before,
not full, so.
We'll end up working with the two consultants together, and hopefully, everyone will come to a good plan. Vassar does several events on campus where they move people around and stuff like that. So, if that becomes part of the plan, then we'll end up, doing something like that if we have to as well.
You wouldn't, you wouldn't think about doing like a little parking garage, would you?
I mean, anything's.
To add a little bit more parking onto those spots?
Aesthetically, that would be kind of difficult in that spot, but we can always contemplate looking at that.
It's a thought. Is there a chance that, the restaurant would be part of the meal plan or something, so that or that's a separate entity?
I don't think it would be part of the students' meal plan. Okay. We do have a program that we call Arlington Bucks, which is part of our dining program, where we give each student some money on their dining card that can be used in some of the local restaurants that participate in our card program. So this may participate in that as well, but beyond that, I would not expect that.
I'm just thinking again for people trafficking versus students.
Sure.
Whatever would draw students to the restaurant too. The dining dollars would work. I guess that's all I have today. And
if I could, I just want to point out to you, we see a lot of plans, a lot of them, and they all look like this. This one that you presented with, they generally have a mother pushing a baby carriage, in front of the building, and that's great. But they almost always never look like they did in the picture. And for instance, someone made a comment before about the depth of the setback here, where the motel was or the hotel was 50 feet back, but the other end of the building where the conference center is, according to the plan I have, is only about 20 feet. And I think it would go a long way. There's a lot of context.
The setback is 50, so we're 50 feet from the property line at all sides.
From the sidewalk. Well, it doesn't look like that from the plan that I have.
Well, it meets the setback requirements, then we're at 50 feet from the property line, which is behind the sidewalk.
But if you look at the plan, it's a lot clearer than it is here. that the buildings are going to dominate that part of the town. And I'm just saying long-term, because this is going to be a long process. As you can see from that, if you go back to the one you just had there, it's sitting pretty much on top of Raymond Avenue. If you can find some way.
It is a bit further back than the homes
Yeah,
adjacent.
yeah, that's fine. But I'm just saying that because of the size of the building, that's going to be the first building that people really recognize when they're coming up that street. I don't know if you can do it. I'm just saying it would probably make a lot of people a lot happier if you could either shift the building back or come up with a different design so that it's not so in your face when you're driving or walking by that property. You're talking about synergy. I mean, I don't feel synergy, when I look at the other buildings in that area and I look at the design of the building that you have there. And like Rocco said, I don't want, you're an artist, and God bless you, every architect is an artist. And part of what you create is from direction that you receive. I'm not certain that the direction that we would give you would be shared by, the person who's paying you. And God bless you, but I just want you to be conscious of that moving forward. The building is a little bit too dominating. People live there and people work there. They make their living there. They like to visit there. We want something there that's going to be inviting, that would be to your benefit, and to be to the benefit of everyone else there who's living, working, and paying taxes in that neighborhood. So if we're talking about synergy, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, because our view of synergy and your boss's view of synergy might be two different things. And I don't want you or him really to waste any more money on if our idea of synergy is not the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's trade-offs on this site because we need the parking. I mean, we could push the building further down, but then you push parking in front, which we think parking in front is a lot less attractive than there's a lot of lawn left in front of the east side of that corner. It's a really nice amenity that we've tried to preserve. The building, like I said, most of the homes on that street are 45. They don't quite meet the 50-foot setback. We're maintaining that 50, and it's I think the property line is on the other side of the sidewalk.
Correct.
So you might be.
We're looking from you some ideas. We need your help to bring these two concepts of synergy together, to truly come together. But
because
right
the
now,
adjacencies of the program really do that. The inn being on College, the idea is that you're sleeping there. It's a quiet building, and it protects from the more active institute and restaurant.
it might be helpful if you could find the time to meet with our planning department and look at some of the designs that we have approved, and see if you can possibly work some of those design elements into your product.
Yeah, it's possible. We're happy to talk. I mean, we have a history in our firm of building contemporary buildings on historic campuses. So we're used to the discussion of putting something modern or very minimal in a setting that's not. And we're happy to talk about it more. We've done it very successfully for many colleges.
That's great. But I think your prospects of getting our backing would be exponentially increased.
Sure. Yeah. I'm very happy to work with you guys.
And I'm sure that's probably what you want in the end, is to have something that, will make everyone happy.
Yeah, we love collaborating. We're very collaborative.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Last question I think I had, you said you had explored some alternative areas, and like what was the next best area that might have been good for this?
The next best area? I don't know. I mean,
we
ended up, I'll be honest, we iterated a lot on the site, and, I think there were a lot of different perspectives on the pros and cons of every site.
Yep.
So to suggest which one was the second best, it's hard for me to say, but in the end, we definitely thought that this site better fit everything, the things that we were looking for.
All right, I was just trying to play around looking where the tennis court. There's another parking lot there along College View, which is needed for parking there as well. So I guess there isn't a lot of potential sites in the area.
Well, it's a large campus.
But unless it was on the campus directly somewhere.
One final thing, and this is, I think, I know it was Thomas Aquinas said that, sometimes it's easier to figure out what a thing is not than what it is. So I want to get this off my plate now, so you can look at it, so you'll be prepared in the future in case it should come up. The governor's office and Department of State published a paper a few years ago about the comprehensive plan and master plan, which we're in the midst of doing that right now. Councilwoman Shershin is here. She's a faithful member of that committee. She's working very hard to put together a new plan for the future for our town. But within the guidelines that the Department of State set forth was spot zoning, and be very careful about that. That's why I asked you before, something else I was concerned about, the zoning text amendment, that I think that forewarned is forearmed, because this may come up. And I just want to read to you from one of those sections. It says, the question of whether rezoning constitutes spot zoning should be answered by determining whether the rezoning was done to benefit individual owners rather than pursuant to a comprehensive plan for the general welfare of the community. So I think you should keep that in mind, because at some point, the question of whether or not this spot zoning might come up. So it might be to your benefit, if you have legal counsel, to have him prepare something for us to demonstrate that there's no question here that this is not spot zoning, particularly since it is purely for the benefit of your institution and no other. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
I think we've given you quite a bit of feedback here tonight, so that will move on.
I move that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed amended action as a type 1 action and authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies. After corrected EAF information, subject to staff review, is submitted to the planning department.
Second. Moved and seconded to declare lead agency. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
I move that the planning board defer action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency for the action as amended and subject to the following: respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies. Said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, included but not limited to the following: 1 through 16.
Second. Moved and seconded to defer for lead agency. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Care. See you next time. Next up, Mazda expansion at 2309 Route 9. Declaration of lead agency intent, site plan and special use permit review to expand the existing Mazda facility to accommodate new inventory and parking areas and a 5,000 square foot building expansion, subject to rezoning approval by the town board. Zone Business Highway and RM Residence Multifamily. It's an unlisted action. Danielle Associates LLC and Elgin Associates owners.
I've got a power cord by you.
Good evening. Chris Lapine with the Chazen Companies, representing the applicant this evening.
Chris Laporta with the Chazen Companies. Just, I've got a PowerPoint here. Just bear with me a second while I
Sounds good.
put the screen up.
Is that working?
Yeah, you have to use the other mic or just.
Turn that
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, this one was switched off.
Yeah, it's the portable
Is
one.
that better?
I don't
Give it a second.
No?
Try now.
All right.
There you
There we go.
we had this issue with the last applicant. I don't know if you have the VGA cord that you might be able to plug in. HDMI
looks like I
seems
do.
to not be working.
Yep, there we go.
There we go. All right, well, thank you for hearing us tonight. Again, my name is Chris Laporta with the Chazen Companies, and this is Chris Lapine. And we're here today to discuss the Mazda Route 9 dealership expansion. So, and the applicant is 2520 Turnpike Realty. Just a quick overview, a little chronology. We submitted the concept plan to the planning board on February 15th, and then we submitted an application of change of zone to the town board on May 24th, and we submitted the full site plan set to the planning board on June 24th. And Chris, I think you wanted to take the lead on the zoning?
Yeah, just to give a kind of an overview, as you're aware, the Mazda dealerships really experienced the benefit of coming here to Poughkeepsie a few years ago, taking over the existing dealership. Their sales have increased over 85% since they've come here. Their service has increased by 45%. They've added 10 staff, new staff, since they've been here. Their goals are to add another 10 to 15 more staff to their existing operation here. But with the benefits associated with coming to Poughkeepsie and the increase in business, they've outgrown their existing 1.42 acre parcel at Anthony Drive and US Route 9. The particular parcel in itself, as Chris alluded to earlier, is zoned in the BH zone. They've have an opportunity, and it's before the town board and yourself, to purchase the adjoining 12.27 acres. The intent being they would look to rezone the portion of the property, which is 5.92 acres, that adjoin its existing parcel. They would maintain the RM district boundary in line with their existing rear property boundary. The RM district would continue to be at the same boundary line as it would be with the adjoining country club apartments parcel. You want to go on? In addition to the rezoning, Mazda itself is implementing what they call the Mazda Retail Evolution, which they're looking to kind of modernize the facades of a number of their franchisees. As part of this application, which just happened to coincide as the project was kind of in its embryonic stages, so the intent here is not only to rezone the adjoining property and expand their parking needs for supply and service, but it's also to redo their existing building as well. And it's not only the facade, but they'll also be modifying the interior of the building in terms of their office space and adding on additional bays in the rear of the building. And there's 6 additional bays being proposed as part of our project that's before you. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to kind of go through the functions of the new site plan that's been presented. All right, so while Chris was talking, I had the aerial up here showing the existing parcel and the proposed parcel. And I think Chris already went over the zoning a little here about the BH and the existing dealership and the proposed change from RM to BH in the adjacent portion of the neighboring parcel. The adjacent land uses include apartments and commercial, and the proposed project is consistent with these uses. Site plan. So here's the our first conceptual site plan that we presented, and as we prepared our site plan package, we developed it a little bit further, got dimensions on the drive aisles, worked some things out with the grading, looked into the stormwater practices. So here's our site plan. Right now, we have
the entrance off of Route 9, which is the existing location now, except we're straightening out the entrance. It's a little bit of an angle right now, just adjusting the geometry to better fit the site. There is
And conform to the DOT requirements as well in terms of the radiuses they asked us to for that particular.
Correct. And we're also proposing to close the curb cut further south down Route 9 into the vacant parcel. So that'll be closed off as part of this project. We're showing on Anthony Drive 2 driveways. Those are the existing driveways, so we're maintaining the existing curb cuts there. That's what we're constrained to. We need to work within those limits, and because of the grading, those are the optimal 2 to keep to make the site functional and have access around the building. We're going to be providing additional parking for the service areas for employees, and also to expand the inventory, which, if you've been to the Mazda dealership lately, they're in definite need of. We did what we could to preserve green space on the southeast side of the site. We're going to manage some stormwater there and kind of work it into the land and leave a nice open area in the southeastern portion of the site.
If I could just touch on that, when we were before the planning board in February, we were encouraged to look at the potential to utilize infiltration on this property and to explore the use of porous pavement on this property. We did extensive soil testing during the design of the project. We found these soils on the eastern portion of this property to be very favorable for infiltration. Those 3 or 4 areas that are being shown on the plan in the southeastern corner are all related to infiltration of stormwater. And within the parking lot area, we've got it hatched. We also incorporated porous pavement into the project as well to address some of the requests of the planning board made as it related to the stormwater management in February.
And that would be the areas that you see hatched a little bit darker in the parking lot. So we're also providing, I should have brought the landscaping plan along, but extensive landscaping around the entire south and western property lines. And we also have a number of planted islands in the middle of the parking spaces, and we didn't do the bare minimum here, which is what you see on a lot of sites where you just use 1 parking space. Those ones in the center there of the large parking lot, they're 2 to 3 spaces large, so we'll be able to have some decent landscaping in there, which is, in my opinion, a lot better than you see in a lot of other car dealerships.
Yeah, and with regards to the landscaping, the existing site as it is does not meet your 30-foot landscape buffer requirement. We've provided that both in the rear and in the front of the site. And on the south side, we've actually gone a bit further in terms of we've made it 40 feet on our property, on the property to be acquired. We also, in laying out this, we tried to eliminate the entire parcel being utilized for a display of cars along the front. If you've taken a close look at this, we're utilizing about 50% of the new parcel for display of cars in the front. If you look at some of the other parcels along Route 9, their entire frontage is being used for the display of cars. So we've tried to do a balance of maintaining a break between our parcel and the adjoining car dealership, and we're providing probably green space, although some of our stormwater management functions are in there, of approximately 160 feet on a 320-foot wide front parcel.
And to Chris's point, in the area where we do have the little loop in front of Route 9, we didn't double stack the parking along that part that directly fronts Route 9 in order to just soften the appearance and keep some green space in the middle of that loop there.
And I know the town, part of the comments we received also with regards to the country club apartments as well in the rear, Right now, the existing parking goes right up to the property line. Likewise, we increased that to about a 35-foot buffer, and we've really screened it with a proposal for 10-foot high coniferous trees along that area and restoring that particular area as well.
How much of the parking in this circular area is customer parking, or is it all inventory parking?
The circular parking in the front is inventory parking. It'll be a mix of both new and used cars.
Okay, so the customer parking is just mostly in front of the main building?
Correct. And it's interesting learning the dynamics of car sales nowadays. Most people do their research at home, and they come to your lot to buy what you have on the lot. They know what they want to buy, so they're not at your actual property for a long period of time. I learned probably about 10% of their actual customers park their car and actually come and walk the property and look at cars on site. Most of them do their research and know what they want to buy when they come to their facility.
All right. Continue.
Yeah, I think that's a good overview of the site plan. Going forward, we're definitely here to hear all of your comments, and we already received from all the town departments comments, and we're going to be looking to respond to them and have another full submittal and before we're here for a public hearing. So we'll be responding to comments, working directly with the planning board just to make sure that we're both heading in the same direction and converging on our thoughts. So we look forward to addressing the current comments and moving forward with this project. I think our next steps will be a referral to the ZBA and just to get the seeker process started and distribute for lead agency.
All right, thanks. Eric?
Sure. In fact, that describes the action before the board tonight. Having received the application, the action for the board would be to declare its intent to be lead agency and circulate, and defer the project until it becomes lead agency. To facilitate the process, the plans were circulated for review, and there's a number of comments from staff and departments for you to review in a revision. We're available to meet with you if you want to work through with any of those before the next submittal. We'd be happy to sit down.
Okay.
Yes. I guess mostly there's some comments having to do with the setbacks, some of which you've addressed here tonight. And some of the site changes. Anthony Drive, as I think you're probably aware, is a private parcel. And so we'd like to get some more information addressing what the access arrangements are there. I know another applicant in the same situation specifically had permissions in an easement. So in order for the planning board to proceed, we need to know what the parameters of that permission.
Correct. What's been conveyed to us, and I'll share with you, is they currently have 3 points of access along there, and they don't have the ability to modify those. They do have the ability to eliminate those. So as shown as our plan, the central driveway, which has the steepest slope coming to the building, that's been eliminated just because it's not feasible both based on the proposed building modifications. We've retained both the western and eastern access points to the property.
Do you know in what format they have the access? Is it by easement? Is it by agreement? If you can find out and just let us know.
I think it would be best to get you the legal document.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I think with that, I'll just let the board ask its questions and proceed from there.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Looks like we do have
Don may have some comments also.
stormwater issues and whatnot, so was heading to Don next.
Yeah, just a couple of questions, Chris. Is there a lot line revision here, or there is none?
The intent they would be combining both parcels.
Okay. And they're going to leave the back part completely vacant?
Correct. The back would be zoned as RM, and that's not part of this application. they're in the car business.
Okay. Other than that, yeah, the SWIP, of course, as always, and we were looking for clarification on of a phasing plan, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Don. Let's go around the board for questions. Start with Peter this time.
I'm going to need some help here from our town engineer. The retention ponds that you have here, I wonder if there's something different you could do. And you could say no. But on the Vassar campus, just south of their main building, they built an area for water retention using a lot of vegetation. It's very attractive, and it appears to do the job really well. And since you have a high exposure area to the road, if that's something that you would look at.
We can certainly look at utilizing some landscaping along the base of the infiltration basins that are shown.
They actually have the vegetation within the
correct
retention area itself, and it's mature and it's very attractive, and apparently it's doing a real good job. I mean, as far as I can see, anyway. So.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the particular function of that facility, whether it was temporary in terms of like a
permanent.
bioretention.
They tore down a building, and there was
We can look into that and try to understand the function of that.
Yeah, if you could take a look at it.
That would be a bioretention kind of thing.
Bioretention, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
There's also some really good examples on plans we have at Marist College, which has some really knock-em-dead landscaping as part of their basins.
They don't even, I don't want to spend your money, they don't have to be knock 'em dead, but I think it would be a lot more attractive than just having a pond sitting there with the.
Yeah, it's just I'm trying to make sure that we have where everybody realizes this functions. You have a bioretention area that has the soil media versus an infiltration basin that utilizes existing gravelly soils. So they function a little similar, but there's also differences that people. We all need.
I'm just thinking about the aesthetics of it, that's all, whatever you can do. Speaking of aesthetics, you mentioned that most people have already made their car selection before they get to the lot. Having said that, it would be great, instead of, we have so many cars on Route 9, which is great, because they generate a lot of, but if you do some fill-in on the screening that you have, I'm looking at your landscape plan, especially in the inventory parking area that you have there, that sort of a circular area. If you could fill in some of that with some additional trees or some kind of plantings to make that a little bit more attractive from the road. Not necessarily in front of the dealership building itself, but just south of that.
Okay, the southeastern portion of it.
Yes,
kind of.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. And, we made that request to another dealership, and, their response was, oh, sure, we'll do it. Then they put in a bunch of junipers underneath that really didn't, was not the anticipated result on our point.
Yeah, the landscaping feedback we also received in February as well, and we tried to incorporate that along with the drainage into our plan. So as Chris was alluding to, this was our first take at it. And I think these comments that you're giving are real great so that we can help these plans to evolve.
You said that there's an 85% increase in sales activity that
Yes,
dealership?
since they've taken over.
Does the owner attribute that to the dogs he has in his commercial?
I'm sorry?
Have you seen them?
Have
you seen his commercials?
I've seen a few with Chet. Well, it's not his owner, but the general manager. I don't know if that's the case, but I've heard.
Dogs sell.
Yeah. I think the manner in which they operate their business is a little differently than the former
Thank you.
dealer.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Nicole?
Sure. Looks like your backflow prevention test needs to be done. Looks like it was last tested in 2016. You guys got that comment from the water department?
I shared that with the owner, and they will address it.
Okay, great. Quick question. If you could just pull up the building again on there.
The rendering that we had in the PowerPoint?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so now the service area is still going to be at the back of it, right?
Correct.
How is someone going to get to the other side? They're going to park in the back
Go to this.
for the service? Because you said the customer parking was going to be in the front.
So they can.
Because the service is in the back, right?
Well, the service entrance currently is on the north side of the building.
On Anthony Drive, right?
Adjacent, yes,
Okay.
facing Anthony Drive.
So
can-
they would park then still in the back, right?
No, they would drop off on the Anthony Drive side. They would currently come into that area here,
Okay.
and they would bring their car. They could either pull in or drop off, and then they can walk in. They'll go into the waiting room.
Because
Their
that's
car-
currently where parking is. for
Correct, that's
that.
currently where the cars, and
Okay.
what I was alluding to earlier in terms of that existing access we want to eliminate, you come up at about a 14% slope there,
Yeah,
which
that's
really
pretty
isn't
steep there.
conducive for service.
Yeah.
That's being eliminated. There's a flat area as part of this project in the front of this building. They could either pull in their car if they desire, or they can leave it there and there'll be an attendant there to get it. Then they'll be brought into an area where they can wait for their car to be serviced. When their car is finished, the parking directly to the south of it, direct to the south, yeah, along there, cars will be placed there, and then they can come out to their cars to pick them up.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, could you put back the rendering again, because I just noticed something, I must not have noticed it. All right, that, so it looks like the way it is today, it's pretty hilly, and it appears that you're gonna excavate it, make it pretty level to Route 9?
Yeah, what we've done, and you can see is we've brought the site in somewhat in terms of creating that landscape buffer, and that's where we're making up the slope so that we've got a flatter surface in the front of the facility.
So the showroom will be basically where the excavated part will be?
Correct.
Okay. And then there'll be several retaining walls, or just one to the right?
Just the one retaining wall in that particular area, because we can make the rest of it up by topography.
Okay, to follow up on what Nicole was asking about the service entrance, will all of the customers drive into the building?
They have either one. They can either drive in, or there'll be an attendant there who can take their car if they choose not to drive in.
Okay, but they won't have to park their car themselves and then go into the thing, okay. The entrance on Route 9 that you show there, is that what's there today? Because I mean, that's what's there with the, what was the trailer park, I guess?
That entrance right now on Route 9 kind of bifurcates where the two property lines actually are right now. Mazda's entryway is slightly to the north of that point.
Right, that's what I thought.
And then there are two entry points to the former mobile home park along Route 9 that'll be closed off and curbed.
All right, do you see that as being the primary entrance exit?
That's the primary entryway in off of Route 9, correct.
And also you expect that to be the exit as well?
Well, that, for cars coming in off of, who are going to proceed to go south, yes.
Right, okay.
There is the signal that they can go out to. if
Right,
they're
I know
going
the
to south.
signal's a little further up, so that could cause a backup there a little bit. All right.
This is how the existing facility is functioning as well, under this scenario. They have a right turn in, right turn out only, and then they access the existing.
All right, but I hardly ever see any cars coming out of there right now. They all seem to go via Anthony.
Okay.
Well, one of the problems with going to Anthony is just, since there's so many cars parked there, it's very tight to even know there's an exit there off the.
Yeah.
But I never noticed the entrance
So
there, actually.
once this is improved, that will change.
Right, but I've never noticed the entrance on Route 9. I mean, maybe I wasn't paying attention because I just,
you can't see
it's up high there, so Just never noticed that.
I mean, I think, anybody going northbound off from here would have to go out, put a light, but.
Correct.
But otherwise, it'll look like a new main entrance there.
All right. All right, I'll wait and see until we have more to plans. Thank you.
The other point I want to make here is the DOT has also asked that we incorporate a sidewalk parallel to the entire property. And we're also in discussions with them about a new pedestrian walkway across Anthony Drive as well.
All right. Yep, that would continue the sidewalk that we've been establishing all the way down from IBM Road and.
Correct.
And coming along. The only question I had on the sidewalk myself was, would it have the 5-foot buffer that we asked for in the town?
We're having some dialogue with the DOT, particularly in terms of that 5-foot buffer where it extends near the intersection with Anthony Drive. There are a number of utilities that are existing in that area.
Okay.
And also the way in which they want us to align this with the crosswalk on the opposite side. We may not meet that 5-foot.
And so just in a couple spots, you're saying? Like
At
that,
the intersection.
That corner there at the intersection.
Yeah, where we tie into.
But generally, you need a buffer so people feel comfortable walking and using.
We're maintaining the 5-foot, and I think it's important to maintain that 5-foot, not only for a comfort level, but also for a snow storage area during plowing.
Yep, sounds good. I think a lot of my other issues have been touched on, but you said you're not going to subdivide that portion. But
Their
I did have-
intent is to combine this, and it would be one parcel.
Be one parcel, but then, but it's zoned RM in the back, so my question would be, I don't see a way for, that becomes like a dead lot as an RM. I don't see a way for access to that in the future, for a future use or subdivision.
Well, future use, they'd have to come in here for a subdivision of the parcel.
But if this, how would that be accessed if it was subdivided in the
I believe
future?
there's an access easement down here.
Well, there's an access easement for the adjoining property to the rear. There's a parcel to the back of the adjoining car dealership, and they had an access easement to get to their parcel years ago.
My question would be, I'm not certain that you can create a lot, which in effect you're doing, without some access.
I guess I'm
Point
losing
of
this.
clarification, I think
I'm
with
not
the
creating a lot.
Yeah, right. The proposal is to merge the existing dealership lot with the entirety of the vacant mobile
Consolidate.
home park lot. However, the zone, what they're proposing for zoning is to rezone only the front portion of the mobile home park lot. But it'd be one lot, the front portion of which would be rezoned to BH and the rear portion of which would be RM. That's just what the proposal is.
Right. Also, do we have a sidewalk maintenance agreement?
Not yet.
But we will.
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of the standard part of the plans.
Yeah, they're also required by the DOT as well, as part of this is to enter into a maintenance agreement.
I guess I'd ask Lisa to comment on that as well. If there's, if it's zoned RM in the back there, it could potentially be subdivided at some other future time and what.
Well, in order to have a lot that's buildable, you need either an open development area from the town board, which they're in the process of doing, or else you need access on a road, and an easement doesn't count as access. So they would either need a 280A variance or some other form of approved access.
Okay. Because there's still quite a bit of land in the back there after this is done, so.
Understood. And just we had some initial dialogue with the town board as well as what dictated where we're proposing that zoning district boundary. We agreed not to rezone the entire parcel, but to maintain the rear in line with the current parcel as RM.
Okay.
And our, for the record, our The applicant is in the car dealership business.
Yeah, I get that.
He has no interest in multifamily or anything of that nature.
I think, and
But he is
please correct
purchasing
me because I haven't been part of the discussion, but part of the effect, I don't know about the intent, but part of the effect of leaving the rear portion zoned RM is that the dealership is accommodated by BH zoning, and a car dealership is not permitted in the RM zone. So the dealership would not, in order to, the dealership could not be expanded to the rear portion of the lot zoned RM without a rezoning. So leaving the rear portion zoned RM effectively creates a very large buffer area between the proposed dealership and the neighborhood to the rear, which cannot be developed as a future expansion of the dealership. It could only be used for RM residential multifamily purposes, which would have to require site plan, access, whatever else might be required in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yeah,
that kind of cover your understanding?
because we have a 100-foot buffer to residential also from the.
Correct. And just with regards to that 100-foot buffer as it relates to the existing building and parking, we're within that currently, and we're trying to improve that, at least by bringing the parking in on the west side of the building.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Chris. And I echo, Peter's comments on the landscaping that, I appreciate that you have the street trees up front there. That looks good. But, all these bioretention areas, whether some more landscaping around it or
We'll take another stab at it.
Or in it. Different storm, I know it's a different practice to do bioretention versus what you have here, but.
I think
but
it's
something.
I think it's really good input.
Even if we could do some more landscaping on the perimeter of it or something between that and Route 9.
And we have some landscape architects in the office, and we'll see if there are, in addition to any shrubs that we're talking about internally or plantings, we'll see what we can do in terms of if there's specific types of trees and we might be able to incorporate into the infiltration basins as well that can be inundated for a short period of time and then come back.
Okay, see what they come up with. Sounds good. And last thing I want to mention is lighting. Just as we talked to the previous project, you got to be careful it's not overlit for the area.
Yeah, we're working with some of the parameters Mazda gave us, and we're back and forth on some of their needs to try to see if they would lower their requirements as well. So, and we'll continue to modify our plan based upon that input.
Okay. All right.
I move that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action, and authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
I move that the planning board defer further action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency and subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness included but not limited to the following 1 through 11.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, you've got some input from us?
Could we have permission, once we take a stab at modifying the landscaping plan, to come have a workshop with your planning department?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Sure. Thank you. Excellent, thank you.
Make sure it's all along the lines of what we're going to do. Good to see they're increasing business and jobs in town, so that's. Next up is Chabad Lubavitch, 63 Vassar Road. Discussion regarding site plan application for a one-story, 2285 square foot addition to an existing structure for a religious organization and worship and related parking expansion. Previously approved in 2009 and expired. At 63 Vassar Road, zoned R20 residential single family. The unlisted action. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Alfred Capelli. I was the project architect back 10 years ago when the project was approved. Richard Chazen was the engineer of record who brought the project through the planning board back then. And we're looking to guide the rabbi in terms of what the requirements would be to approve the same exact site plan, same exact application, same criteria, same building design that was presented and approved 10 years ago. Certain things have changed, perhaps, that may need to be amended. And in order for the rabbi to move forward, he would like to know, what needed to be done to amend a site plan, if anything. He will be retaining an engineer, hopefully continuing with Chazen, to modify, if necessary, the application, the site plan as necessary to get the approval and now construct the addition.
All right, thanks. Eric?
This application, we only received, the application form came in, but the plans came in just before the packets went out to you, and the EAF, in fact, wasn't even in until that day. So we've done no review. There's been no opportunity to do any review. We had put it on for discussion. However, having received these items, I haven't reviewed them yet, but if the board discusses it with the applicant, I can look them over, and if they're suitable, then if the board wants to provide a authorization to circulate for lead agents, can do that. As far as changes since the last time, I haven't reviewed it, so I don't know. There may or may not be changes to zoning or the building code that require other changes. I don't know. However, the only other change I'm confident of is the adjacent property to the north is now in the same ownership, which may have no bearing on the application. I don't know. Otherwise, you're invited to discuss it with the applicant. And he's already asked to be on the August agenda for a formal review where we can review it and provide and circulate it to the other departments and get some comments back.
All right, thanks, Eric. Any engineering concerns, Don, with this one?
Not at the moment, no.
All right. Let's go around the board for comments then. Peter?
Like you said, this was approved in 2009. The master plan, last master plan was in 2007. I mean, there have been some amendments, but I'm not a...
Right, probably no setback changes or anything like that.
As far as I know.
Have we had any comments yet from the zoning?
It hasn't been circulated. We had no
circulate. Never mind. All right, thanks, Peter. Rocco?
I don't have any comments until we go through the process here.
Paul?
What do you use the building for?
Right now for a synagogue.
Okay.
We are using the 163 Vassar Road. Currently, we're using this as a synagogue temporarily until we get this same building up with a nicer structure.
Could you just lead forward so it goes on the mic so that it's on the record?
I said we are currently using the home that's there now, and all we're trying to do is get a visual look outside that it's a synagogue rather than just a home.
Is just, again, it'll help for the next review. You say the current home is being used. Is it in residential use or just synagogue use?
Just synagogue. I don't live there, no.
Right. Yep.
I actually live a mile away.
Right, anything further?
Okay. And then you're going to have to do a parking expansion there as well?
Yeah, I think it's what's provided.
Yeah, we are adding parking. I think last time Richard had gotten either the board or the ZBA to give some relief on the number of parking spaces. Technically, for going to the synagogue, nobody's supposed to be driving, but
Right.
that being said, on the Sabbath, yeah, I don't recall exactly the number of parking spaces that were required, and the relief, maybe they gave us relief on 5 maybe parking spaces from the requirements at the time. I don't know exactly, but we can look in the records there, yeah.
Okay. All right, that was it at this time.
Yeah, I recall similar relief because of the walking Sabbath.
Right.
Sabbath.
And now it makes it a little bit easier. He does own the property next door, even though, again, the two have to act independently of one another, but they can park at the house next door, another residence, if need be, I suppose. But
So no current plans to change that?
no current plans to do, that's correct.
Yeah, as I recall, yeah, when looking back on it again, I remember that we had a pretty good landscaping plan put in place, and
Yes. I think he had a pretty big, pretty complete submittal last time, landscaping, lighting,
see it all.
yada, 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 yes.
Just can't remember what the architecture of the addition was, but.
And I didn't bring anything with me, but there was a rendition, there were elevations, there were materials submitted. It was a brick facade, if you
Okay.
will. So that
It'll
could
be-
be presented next
Sorry.
time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we can get that as a
Absolutely.
submittal for, the deadline's Monday, if we can get a submittal sooner, we can include that in the circulation for August comments.
Sure, not a problem.
That'll be great. All right,
So we're going to circulate, and the rabbi will be back on August 15th? Is that
Yep. That would,
the idea here?
that would be the intent.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Rabbi? Where, and and not to ask a dumb question, but are we,
No dumb questions in
starting?
this
No, that's okay,
business.
and that's why I called you a couple of weeks ago. Are we starting the seeker process over again? Am I going for a public hearing, et cetera, et cetera? So that process is going to be, even if there are no changes to the site plan from an engineering or review point of view, I still have to have a public hearing, do I? Or, so that's part of the timing that we're looking to.
Right. It'll be circulated for lead agency this month, and then as the process goes on and as the review continues, the board will decide whether it deems it necessary to hold a public hearing or
Okay.
whether it will waive the public hearing.
Okay.
But that's not a decision that they'll make yet.
That's fine. Okay, fair enough.
Thanks.
This can come out, just the review fees are paid, can come out, because they paid the review fees. So it should be only after staff reviews.
Only after staff reviews, right?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. I move that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed action as an unlisted action, and authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of EAF, and a copy of the application to identified involved agencies only after staff determines the submittal is sufficient for lead agency intent circulation.
Second.
Moved and seconded for lead agency. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
I move that the planning board defer action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Rabbi Borenstein,
Yes.
I'm sure you're familiar with Ezekiel 34, passage about the Good Shepherd's my favorite passage in the Bible. When I read that, I think of you as a good shepherd. And God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, and, yep, just get that information to Eric, and he'll circulate it. Next up is Target Poughkeepsie Galleria, sign facade improvements, architectural review for a proposed update to the store exterior with fresh color scheme, red ephes, cladding, new white site, and repainting. 2001 South Road, Zone B, SC Shopping, Business Shopping Center District. It's a type 2 action, Target Corporation owner. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Michael Youngins. I'm with Kimley Horn Associates, an engineering firm out of White Plains. I just wanted to present the elevation updates. What's proposed here tonight is strictly for architectural review. There are no facade configuration changes or anything like that. It's strictly a freshen up to bring the building to the current color scheme that Target is using. And it's also proposing to change the signage. If you recall the building today, there's actually on the corner where it's red, there's a sign that has the bullseye and has the word Target below it. They're actually eliminating the word Target and putting a new bullseye in. So this actually represents a reduction in signage on the building. Doesn't actually say Target anywhere.
Yep.
So it's just the bullseye. And then the color scheme today is off-whites and some beiges. It's all now going to be a slightly darker color with the red corner, which is now white, which is going to be resurfaced in an ephes material. Today it's kind of a split block kind of pattern. Now it's going to have a brick patterned ephes on it. And then it's a repainting with grays and beiges for the rest of the building. Again, no changes, and all the signage is proposed is actually less and is going to be compliant with the requirements of the building department.
I just handed the applicant earlier submitted samples.
The samples, yeah.
Of the red ephes material and of the pink colors. So I just handed that to the chairman and for the planning board to look at.
This is an architectural review, so chime in with any comments. To me, it looks like you're just flipping the colors of the bullseye.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Is the red, the tower red, that's current, what color is that currently?
That's an off-white today.
So so the change in color is on the tower, and then the rest of the building is
Oh,
staying the same?
The whole building today is actually in lighter grays and beiges, and it's actually getting slightly darker. It's a complete change. And also we show, which isn't required, the lowest elevation is actually the interior within the mall. That's getting changed to the same color scheme, so it's consistent.
Yeah, right now it's a white background with a red bullseye. Now it's going to be a red background with a white bullseye, the way it looks.
Needs no introduction.
Does anyone have any additional comments on it? I see this one diagram, site plan showing a bullseye on the roof. Is that really?
Oh, no, that's just to identify it on the plan, yeah.
Okay.
No bullseye on the roof.
Okay. That would be a big sign. Anybody have any comments?
No, it'll be easier to find.
I move we accept architecture as presented. Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you very much.
Good luck with the refresh.
Okay, we'll start painting.
Yep. Next up, as soon as I find it, is a Stratford Farm Townhouses time extension for the final major subdivision approval, site plan approval for the 26 individual townhouse lots. It's zoned R4 acres. Seeker negative declaration is on file. I move that we grant 2 90-day time extensions of site plan approval and final major subdivision approval from July 27th, 2019 forward to January 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Next up, Greystone Apartments. Time extension of construction completion for approved site plan to convert existing offices in the basement and first floor of 36 Violet Avenue into 6 one-bedroom apartments. I move that we grant 2 90-day time extensions of the site plan completion date required by Section 210, 151J from August 3rd, 2019 forward to January 30th, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Is there any other business?
I just wanted to ask Eric, did you have any conversations with the Greystone programs about this? You did?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just surprised, with today's market at the low interest rates, that they would have problems getting.
They said as they said in their cover letter, they had difficulty raising funds for the project, and they are now reconsidering how to move forward, and they're now reconsidering, instead of creating the 6 supported apartments in the building that were previously approved.
I remember.
Instead, they're considering renovations and doing dayhab space. And so if they decide to move ahead with that, it would probably require a different site plan because it's a different use. So, and they need some time to either obtain funds to go forward with the project as approved or to recast the site plan.
It's a great organization.
Yeah.
Any other business for the board? Do I hear any other motions?
I motion that we end this evening's planning board meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition? We are complete for July.